This is the regular board meeting of the Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District. Today is Saturday, October 10th, and the time is approximately 8 a.m. I hereby call the meeting to order. Michael, do you have some announcements?
I do. Welcome to the Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility regular board meeting. The district would like to welcome Terry Woodrow from Alpine County is in the audience, and Larry Parker, one of our homeowners. So thanks for having members of the public attend. This meeting is being fed live over the internet, and the public can view this meeting by going to www.kmpud.com and following the appropriate link. If the public would like to make a comment or a question, please email msharp@kmpud.com and the board will respond. Since one of our board members, Director ND, is participating remotely, all voting and motions must be done by voice vote. I ask the public to please identify yourself when making comments. And with that, turn it back to you, sir.
Great. Peter, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Rickard, absent. Andy?
Here.
O'Grady?
Here.
Dornberg here. And Epstein here. Okay.
Item number 4 is oral communication / public input. It's the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on non-agenda items relating to district business. No action can be taken by the board on matters not appearing on the agenda. Any public input? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, which is corrections to the agenda or consent calendar. Anybody have any corrections to the agenda or consent calendar? I've been advised. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, there was some suggested changes to the minutes.
And they were accomplished and they were sent back out.
Okay.
I've been advised that it would be an improvement in our process if we had a motion to approve the agenda and the consent calendar. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Dornberg moves to approve the agenda and consent calendar.
16 seconds.
All, I guess we need a voice vote. So, Andy?
Aye.
O'Grady, aye.
Dornberg, aye.
Epstein, aye.
And Rickard, absent. Item 6 is adoption of the consent calendar. I'll move that we adopt the consent calendar.
Epstein, seconds.
So to vote, Andy?
Aye.
O'Grady, aye.
Dornberg, aye.
Epstein, aye.
Moving along to item 7, there are no consent items brought forward. So we move on to 8, new and unfinished business and action items. 8A is update and possible action regarding the recent Butte fire and the financial and operational impacts on the district due to the fire. Discussion of the performance of the powerhouse during the power outage. Manager Michael Sharp.
On Tuesday, September 9th, at approximately 2:26 p.m., the Butte fire started in Amador County. By the time the fire was fully contained in both Amador and Calaveras counties, it had burned over 70,000 acres. 475 residents were lost, 343 outbuildings, 445 structures damaged. Tragedy, 2 fatalities were reported. The district's sympathies go out to the victims, and here's a few slides showing the extent and the intensity of this fire down in Amador and Calaveras. Those are PG&E trucks surveying damage. And here at Kirkwood, our power was de-energized. The 115 was de-energized on Wednesday, September 9th, at approximately 6:12. Our power was restored a week later on Thursday, September 17th at 8:38 a.m. Residential and lift feeds were restored automatically at 6:15 through the powerhouse, and the commercial tripped off and then was restored at 6:20. So we were on the powerhouse generators for the entire week. Generators remained on, giving the valley power until the out valley connection was restored, with no additional power outages during the period. Diesel, oil, coolant filters were ordered to ensure that we had plenty of supplies over a long haul. We didn't know when the power would be restored. We had no idea, of course. It was a fast-moving fire. Cats 1, 2, 3, and all the Volvos were run during the outage. We put the cats on the load, but the Volvos were test run during the outage as well. We turned on all step-up transformers and became fully engaged so that we could respond to any power needs that the valley had. We had issues with the ammonia injection in cats 1 and 2, and staff investigated this and was able to keep both running and with no permit violations. Labor, we operated the powerhouse on 2 shifts. We went to a day shift and a swing shift. Day shift starting at 5:30 a.m. and swing shift starting at 5:30 p.m. so that we had very little time that we had to actually come and check the powerhouse. We made sure that we were checking at least every 4 hours. We kept at least 20,000 gallons of diesel on hand at all times. And staffing had to, we pulled staff from other areas, other projects to work on those projects. So we had minimal overtime associated, but we stopped all other projects. We stopped the phasing project. We stopped anything else and concentrated on making sure that our powerhouse was. Over at the wastewater treatment plant, we went to John Deere's powered initially. We had to reset several alarms and then reverted to the powerhouse supply once we knew we were stable. Staff posted, as far as administratively, we posted 3 different website and email notifications about during the period, and we have received compliments on our not only, of course, having power in the valley during this fire, but also our notification to the customers. As far as our financial impacts, once again, our overage costs were a little bit of overtime hours during the initial powerhouse operations, but then we did have additional fuel costs, but somewhat offset by the lack of power that we were buying from CalISO. But overall, we spent about $15,000 of electrical money on payroll during this period, and about the same, about $14,300 on diesel. But once again, those costs were offset by other costs, and we just weren't working on certain projects that we had planned to. We had a staff luncheon recently to thank the crews for working the extra hours in the different shifts, and I think, as always, district staff went above and beyond with no complaining during an emergency situation. I was really proud of their efforts. So, and then I would like to open it up to questions, and Bob Indy, who had an idea of establishing a rate for extended outages. So with that.
Questions?
Yeah, I'll just comment to follow up, Michael. You rightly said I prompted for us to consider whether or not we should have an exception rate when things like this happen. $30,000 is not a huge amount of money, nor is it a trivial amount of money considering the overall financial position. So maybe it would make sense for us to have a way to pass on costs incurred to the customers that benefited from it. And I would say beyond that is heck of a nice job. Our system worked. Our people, our equipment, the whole backup thing did exactly what it was supposed to do, and that's really nice.
Questions, comments from other board members?
It's great, good order.
Questions or comments from the audience?
Just curious, how much, you said 20,000 gallons of diesel, what duration do we maintain up here? How long could we go without diesel or off-site power?
We maintain enough for at least 1 week of full operation during Christmas, New Year type activity.
Oh, full lift-offs.
So full lift-off. So we have, I think it's closer to a month of summertime also.
Well, great.
Thank you, Brandon.
Michael, so it sounds like you'd grade the overall district performance something like an A. And the question, and I guess my follow-up question is, are there 1 or 2 or 3 things you took away that we would try to do differently if we encounter another version of this?
Yeah, one of the takeaways that we've already implemented, and I'm really happy about it, is that Brandy is taking over the maintenance and the care for the wastewater treatment plant generators. I mean, she's got 8 generators at the powerhouse. There's no reason that these talented people can't be
One more.
operating actually 3 more generators over at the wastewater treatment plant. And that's one of the things that she's working on. I think it makes a lot of sense, and that's one of the takeaways, because we did have some issues over at the wastewater treatment plant. So yeah, and secondly, I think our communications with PG&E, after the fact are great, but right at the initial stages, they were scrambling so quickly. Possibly there's nothing that could be done, but we didn't find out till we got shut off.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was some real questions on whether our 12 kV service to the KM Green was on or off. And we finally figured out that it was on by looking at our cameras. And if the cameras are on, we knew we had remote power, and that they had rediverted power up the 12 kV line, even though the 115 was down. But I think the communications between PG&E and us, because I understood that they had a lot going on, but if we could have known whether our 12 kV was on or not, would have given us an assurance. Because if it goes down and the 115 goes down, we have to, within 24 hours, go down there and turn on a generator to keep the power, the control building warm. It's in the summer, so hopefully we would have longer than that period, but still it's a concern that we need to know whether we have power down there or not. There's going to be an additional outage at KM Green on October 26th and 7th, and we're going to work with PG&E on the switching orders and the coordination of that effort. And so this has nothing to do with the Butte fire. This has something to do with their maintenance issues, but we'll work on communications on that.
Sure. Well, we're new to PG&E too, right? Last year.
Yeah, we'll bring it.
My own thought on your rates. I'm sorry. Was there?
Yeah, just one more question, sorry.
No,
So one of the possible causes of a fire that they're looking into was a down PG&E line or a tree. So the above ground lines that is part of KM Green, does Kirkwood, the PUD, have responsibility for those and liability in case, and coverage and so forth, insurance and so forth, if some future fire is started by a Kirkwood above ground line? The liability of.
Sure. Yeah, most definitely. We have ownership of the line all the way from Salt Springs up the canyon on 115 up to the KM Green substation, and then over on the 34K to Bear River. So all of that above area, but we're part of NCJPA, Northern California Joint Poles Association. We have the 115 or the 34 on top, and then PG&E has the 12K on the bottom.
Okay.
So one of the nice things is that PG&E is actually involved in all of the poles, and they do regular maintenance and sweeps as well as us. There isn't insurance on overhead lines that we're aware of. So we certainly would have. I think the most important thing that we've heard from General Counsel is that we maintain and keep excellent maintenance records, and if we see something that we react to it, and if we see a leaner, and that we're taking prudent steps to maintaining that corridor, because you can't ever know what's going to happen, and you can't cut down all the trees. You have to leave a corridor, and but I know PG&E has just done an arborist sweep through the area of the 34 where that's where mostly of the forest is. The 115 is pretty, is pretty clear. So,
Thanks.
So, Michael, was Council's point there about keeping the records and doing the maintenance really meticulously so that we could defend ourselves against liability if there were a fire started by some of our equipment?
Absolutely, that we're taking reasonable care and that we're taking, we were advised that we should do twice a year inspections on the Out Valley line. We do monthly inspections, so that's the reasonable care that the district is. And these are all written inspections, and if we do have what we would call a tree that looks, out of bounds, and we take pictures of it and we forward those to an arborist to get his opinion of it as well.
My own reaction to your suggestion, Bob, Andy, was about a different rate, in circumstances like this, is that I think it's an interesting idea for sure to be considered. My personal view is I probably would do that in the context of our next regular, hopefully, rate adjustment, hopefully in a downward direction, as opposed to kicking it off, as a dedicated effort right now. I mean, hopefully this is not a regular occurrence where we run on generators for a week. But that's just one person's reaction, meaning it is an interesting idea, and I would suggest we consider it in due course.
What,
I'm fine with that.
yeah, my thought on it is we should just build into the rates an assumption that it's a certain number of hours that we're running on diesel. If we do less, we'll be slightly ahead, and if we do, what's happening there. Because I'm now getting the sense that PG&E has clearances as part of their maintenance, and we just better get used to it. And so we could just build that into our assumptions of what our costs are. And the other possibilities, we could, at the next rate study, reinstitute the fuel adjustment charge. So if our diesel costs are higher in a month, we could add that in. But I think people expect us to know what our average conditions are and to build those into the rates.
I would like to think this is not average, meaning, we can...
The fires?
Yeah.
Two devastating fires this year so far.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Anything else on 8A? Moving along to 8B, discussion of possible action regarding the district's financials. Manager Sharp and Accounting Manager Kelly Bride. Welcome, Kelly.
Morning.
I wanted to start off this discussion with a discussion of personnel, since we had quite a few changes during the month, and most of them were in the administrative area. During the last month, the department had a very busy personnel period. Jill Campbell left. She went to Idaho. Jen Barstead left. She went to work for KCA. Kelly McBride was promoted to county manager. Amy Pfeiffer has stepped up to the role of staff accountant. She's moved from the front office to the back office. Kim Norton, who I added in the packet, her resume, has been hired as a staff accountant. She has 8 years of experience with TRPA, which is a large organization in South Lake Tahoe. Jessica Austin has been hired as customer service and accountant. Jessica worked for a period of time for Bruce Gianolo over at KCA. Rick Ansel has moved upstairs from his dungeon down in the fire department to the bright light and the beehive of the administrative world. So that's to get so that he could take on and be exposed more to administrative items. So we've seen lots of changes during the month. I think we've seen some real positive things occur, and I have a new flow chart in your packet that reflects those changes. And with that, I open up to any questions you have.
Any questions?
Okay. So we'll start with August financials. If you'll go to page 15 in your packet with the balance sheet. The things that I'd like to note on the balance sheet for August, you'll notice that total operating cash is down from budget, and this was due to the fact that our payment for our COP loan was made at the end of August, but it was budgeted to be made in September. So that's the difference in the cash, operating cash for August. And then you'll also notice that, again, we've mentioned this before, total reserve and the trustee special construction cash accounts are significantly up from budget, and this is due to the fact that our payment to PG&E for the remainder of the Out Valley project has yet to be paid. This is about $2.3 million is what we're waiting to pay for PG&E. And then one small note that's been carrying through from the beginning of the year is the fact that right now total assets and total liabilities and equity do not balance, and this is because we are waiting to get the remaining journal entries from our audit, and once we have those journal entries, we'll be able to close last fiscal year, and then everything will roll up and the balance sheet will balance. And that's all I have on the balance sheet, unless there are any questions.
Questions or comments from the board or audience? Why don't you keep going, Kelly? Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the combined income statement for August on page 17 of your packet. You'll notice that overall revenues are slightly better than budget for the year, and this is mainly due to our internal use being higher than we expected. And this just relates back to the fact that we are now metering all of our internal use. In the past, we estimated that use, and now it's a lot more accurate due to the fact that we have meters on the powerhouse and the vaporizer sheds and all of those things. So that's why we're doing just slightly better than budget there. You'll notice that operating expenses, we're doing significantly better than budget, and this is due to the fact that PG&E O&M costs had not been accrued, and we are going to do that. We have doing entries to accrue that starting in the beginning of the fiscal year, so you'll see that adjustment coming up in the September financials. And then also we have not received our final audit billing from Moss Adams, and that directly relates to contract services. Also, depreciation is down from budget, and this is due to the fact that we still have a large amount from the PG&E Out Valley project yet to be capitalized and depreciated. And then you'll notice that there is a new line on the combined balance sheet for contribution revenues, and this is due to the acquisition of the TC Townhomes infrastructure, which was $245,000. And due to GASB 33 rule, we have to show that as contribution revenues, and that will show for the rest of the year, and it does flow down through fire, water, wastewater, electric, and propane. And that's all I have for the combined income statement. Is there any questions?
Well, there's no taxation on the transfer of those assets, I assume.
No. I mean, we do depreciate that. It's
Yeah.
If there were, we could charge them just like PG&E does.
I don't know if they pay.
Okay, moving on. Just a couple of quick notes on some of the individual funds. On page 18 for general and administration, there will be additional allocations once we can close June and move on. So this will zero out once I go through and do the additional allocations that need to be done once June is closed. Moving on to water on page 22. Salaries and wages are up just slightly, and this is due to the special projects that we've done throughout the summer, like painting wells and things like that. On wastewater, on page 23, same thing, you'll notice that salaries and wages are up. And again, this was due to the large painting project that we did to improve the look of the wastewater treatment plant, and the increased on-call pay. Moving on to electric, on page 25, you'll notice that internal use is up from budget, like I mentioned earlier. And again, this is due to the fact of the metering of the powerhouse and all of our internal use. Snow removal on page 27. Just to note that we will start to book our unearned revenues for contract revenue. That'll start in October. So that's when snow removal will start to come back online and not look like they're losing so much. We just have to wait till October for that to happen. And then one final note on propane on page 28. Cost of goods is significantly down, and this is due to an adjustment from July, as well as the fact that our budget assumes that the cost of propane is about $1.96 per gallon, when we're actually paying right around 60 cents per gallon and have been for the last 6 months or so. And then even in the winter last year, propane never got over $1.50. So that's all I have for August financials. Is there any questions?
Well, the cost of goods sold, ignoring that one-time adjustment, should make the cost of propane net out, right? So,
Because of the
yeah, because,
revenues.
right.
Because of, there's a fuel cost balancing component to the rate?
Right, so you have a reduced rate.
Yeah, right. And that's why we have a cost of goods sold, so those things cancel each other out.
Michael, do you have a chart up there? Is there anything you want to point out, or is it just a summary of what Kelly
Just
said?
It's just a summary.
It's for the members of the public if they wanted to
Okay,
follow along.
right. Any questions from the board or audience? Good.
Okay. Moving on to the cash or September prelims. Just a quick note that, again, the only thing that is actual on the September prelims is revenues. And it's falling into line again. We're just slightly above budget, and again, it's due to internal use. All of the other expenses on the September prelim, excluding salaries and wages and payroll taxes and benefits, are estimated. Salaries and wages and payroll taxes are actually pretty close. There's only a couple of days left to be booked for September.
I'm just curious, you have referred several times to internal usage, and you have a line for internal usage, but then I think the vast majority of internal usage is in your line of other sales to public authorities.
That is the RUS compliant account for electric use.
Which one?
So,
The
right.
other?
So the other sales to public authorities is the electric portion of internal use.
Okay.
The KMP internal usage is all the other water, wastewater, propane.
I see. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Are there any questions?
We don't use much of our other services, do we?
Not right
It's
now.
around
Once
8
once it starts to get cold, we'll use more propane definitely.
Okay. I think I'd pay more for my propane than PES. Great. Any questions on the September preliminaries? Cash flow?
On to cash flow, and this is on page 31 of your packet. Really, the only big change from last month is the fact that we moved the transfer of the snow removal depreciation to the next quarter. And this is because we usually wait for the audit to be closed to make sure there's no additional adjustments that need to be recorded. So this transfer of cash to the snow removal reserve will happen hopefully next month. And actual operating cash is at 1.96, which is just slightly better than budget. And I think that this directly relates to the savings in expenses that we have saved this year so far. Total reserve still accounts for the Out Valley overage and switch station project happening. And then just another note, we are going to work next month to change the format of this for the current year to show monthly rather than quarterly. It's a little, Michael and I both think that it's better to see it on a monthly basis, and I think our numbers will be more accurate if we do it monthly. So we're going to change it so that the current year shows month to month, and then the preceding years will show quarterly.
Might be a little bit longer, but I think that
Yeah, I agree.
That's my project for this month.
Among others.
Yeah. And that's all I have for cash waterfall. And then just one other note, if we'll go to the next slide.
Kelly,
Oh,
if the cash overage is directly related to expense management, why does it reverse in the December quarter? Meaning we're $214,000 better than cash in September, and we're projecting to be $27,000 better in December.
That's because the numbers that are in the quarter are based on budget.
Budget, okay.
So once the actuals happen, hopefully that savings will go through, providing we don't go.
Maybe even be better.
Right,
So the notion of it being an updated forecast is only true for the current,
right.
for the current month.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions on that?
Yeah. Well, I guess I would ask that as you see changes happening over the next year, that you factor those into future quarters as opposed to stick to the budget.
Absolutely.
Any questions from the audience on cash flow component?
And I think Michael is going to do the audit update.
Okay.
as has been reported, the completion of the audit has been delayed to a new reporting requirement in GASB 68 related to the CalPERS unfunded retirement liability. Recent discussions with Moss Adams have indicated that the audit will be ready for staff review on October 16th, and then ready for distribution to the Finance Committee. So as soon as I see it reviewed, I'll get it out to the Finance Committee. Moss Adams will actually call into the November Finance Committee to answer any questions. Olga will call in, and then the audit will be on the agenda for review by the board at the November 14th meeting. So with that, I open up to any questions. This did go before the Finance Committee.
When we have that Finance Committee meeting, can we budget some time for a closed session? Meaning, traditionally, an audit committee or a Finance Committee would both listen to the auditors and review their management letter. I assume their management letters will be ready at that time too, is that correct?
And you'll have them in advance.
Okay, and I guess I'm just saying let's conduct a regular audit committee meeting where we hear them and have a chance to talk to them without management, if that's okay.
Right, so it's not a closed session, it's just management leaves.
Right.
Yeah, closed sessions are reserved for other items. But,
Okay. Is that okay with you, Bob?
Yeah, that's what I assumed. Thanks.
I don't have any questions on the audit. Does anybody else in the audience or board? Hearing none, we'll move on to online access improvements.
We've installed some new charting features on KMPUD.com that allow our customers to compare different aspects of their bill to previous months and years' billing. The chart that I have up there happens to be my bill, my electric usage. But you can see that it shows 4 different years of usage. You can compare the amount dues, if you hover over each little dot on the chart, it'll show you the total electric usage. If you were looking at your total amount due, it would show you the total amount due for each month. And we also installed a chart that shows your days of water use, which we feel directly relates to the time that you were actually in your home. So if you see a spike in your electric use, you can look and say, oh, well, I was in the house for 15 days this month rather than a normal 5 days. And I think we've gotten some good response from customers actually using the charts already, comparing old years of usage and things like that. So I think it's been a positive response from the public so far. And we did announce it in our newsletter as well. So hopefully people will see the newsletter and go sign up and start using all of the great features that we have at KMPUD.com. The next big piece of that we're looking to chart is weather and snowfall data. So that's the next step, I think, that will help customers see why their usage is up, and they'll see that it was cold and it snowed. So just more things for our customers to use and compare their bill, and that's all I have for that.
So I have one question on that chart, which I think was the one in the newsletter, and that is, why did the blue line, stop for like 3 months, 2 months in the summer?
We just don't have that data.
Oh, okay.
That's the 2012 is when we first started getting data for that. So there was a break in the data that we had available.
It's not for everybody, but it's for some people.
Right, because mine blue was continuous. It started in
Well,
May.
and the reason why is because you weren't signed up at PCS for email billing. So what happens is we actually pull the data off of the statements that PCS issues. And they don't issue a statement for us to print if you didn't ask for printed bills. So I can assure you that you got email bills for those 2 months.
Oh, since I
And
didn't
since
get
you
any.
didn't, that's why you have it. So things are continuous from that point because we have the data from PCS. And they couldn't provide us the data. So
I would offer 2 suggestions or possibilities for you to consider that would make my experience better.
Mm-hmm.
One is on the bill, since I don't go log on all the time, but I do look at my bill when it shows up, more than one prior year. It would be one suggestion. And the other is the total bill amount. And there are a variety of ways that you could handle that. One is in the bottom of the bills that come out electronically, there's electricity, cubic feet of water, cubic feet of propane for the current month in the current year, and then there's the same month in the prior year.
Right.
If it's possible, one way to do it would be to add the prior years for which we have that data. And the other suggestion is a total bill dollar amount. Either add a column, or if it's possible to reprint this chart there, I think it's terrific. And for me, my charts look very similar, which surprises me given the rate changes we've had, meaning they look similar from year to year. They look very different from yours. Mine look like a big U, meaning in the winter, I spend a lot more with the PUD.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Michael and I talked about this yesterday. A lot of the other utilities, including Sierra, Nevada Energy, or whatever they're called, and PG&E, have charts of this year versus prior years. And so I was just kind of thinking it'd be great to have a dollar amount, maybe more years of usage as they become available. If that's
Printed on the actual bill.
Yeah, if that's straightforward. I don't want to create a lot of work.
Only on the email version.
Only on the email version.
That would be my preference, but as opposed to add a piece of paper.
The work is very straightforward. The bill was designed so most customers would fit on one page.
Right.
And as a result, that's what limits us. But if the email version obviously can be longer. The other thing we thought about is showing how many days we think you were at your home on that in that time period.
Sure.
Because that really influences
Consumption.
the consumption, right? I mean, that's the big variable for people which these are second homes, which is most of us.
Right.
Yeah. So we could certainly do that.
Just for consideration. And one of the reasons is, Michael and I talked about yesterday about whether or not to give a chart of like kilowatt hour consumption, and that's good from I think a conservation standpoint. If we want people, assuming we want people to conserve, I am coming at the dollar thing more from a PR standpoint. As we've done surveys over the years, we've been criticized for being an expensive utility provider. Well, the total bill data, at least for me, shows that our total bills are kind of constant over a 4-year period. So it's a PR thing. Any other comments, questions on the online access? I think they're terrific. And Kelly, thank you for that, as well as a good summary, and congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to 8C, which is a major topic, discussion and possible action regarding the construction closeout and completion of the underground portion of the Out Valley Power Line project. Manager Sharp.
I put this on the agenda so that I could show more construction slides. So once again, 8 years ago, we began having weekly Out Valley meetings to discuss the feasibility of the Out Valley project. These meetings turned into meetings on the environmental aspects and the completion of the EIR, EIS. Then they went on to construction meetings, and we actually had 3 meetings a day with substation meetings and underground meetings and overhead meetings. And then we finally went back to weekly meetings where we went into the wrap-up. These turned into every 2-week meetings, and this last week we held our last regularly scheduled meeting of the Out Valley project. And today we look to close out the final portion of the project. So just a few slides to remember the underground portion of the project, the rocks that we hit, and the paving challenges that we have. And I promise that was the last construction shots I'll show. The underground section of the Out Valley project has been complete since August 4th. However, we had some administrative issues for formal closing of the project, and today we look to formally close out the project underground portion. Both the overhead and the substations were officially closed on June 12th. KMPUD construction has satisfactorily completed the remedial work on State Route 88. That was the slurry work that was done. And EDGE communications work has been inspected and approved by Exponential and district staff. That was the fiber work. So before you today are 6 different action items. The first is the KMPUD change order number 6. That is for the payment of the remedial work on Highway 88 near Classes. That's $54,516. That's the combination of the 2 different ones, one in January and one in August. So we had an approval for the August one alone was $85,000, but we were able to do it for quite a bit less expensive. Item number 2 is for the pay request of that $54,000. So the first one's a change order, the second one's a pay request. Item number 3 is the reimbursement to the district. So it's a change order being a credit for the work that we paid for to EDGE to complete the emergency repairs on the Silver Lake Bridge. That's a credit back from KMPUD of $4,650. Item number 4 is a pay request. We held $60,000 of retention money. This is the release of the final retention amount less that credit. So it's $60,000 less $4,650 for a total amount of $55,350 retention. And the board, remember, we held a 5% retention on all payments. Item number 5 is the actual certificate of completion, which has already been signed by Exponential. Total construction for the project amounted to $14 million. And then the last item is a notice of completion for recording in Amador County. The final record drawings are being submitted to Caltrans, and district staff recommends approval by the board of all 6 issues that I just mentioned.
Okay. Any discussion at the board level? No.
No?
At the audience level? Well, can I make a motion to approve the first 4 together, which are change order number 6 for $54,516.94, pay request number 14 for the same amount of money, and change order number 7 for the reimbursement to the district by Edge in the amount of $4,650, and finally pay request number 15 representing the release of the final retention amount less the credit back to the district for change order number 7 in the amount of $55,350.
I'll second that. Abstain.
All in favor or opposed? Andy?
Aye.
O'Grady, aye.
Dormer guy?
Abstain. Aye.
And to move on, I'd like to make a motion to approve the certificate of completion, Russ Form 187, related to the Out Valley Underground construction contract between Q&D Construction and the district, authorizing the president to execute.
I abstain. Seconds.
All in favor? Andy?
Aye.
O'Grady, aye.
Dormer guy?
Abstain. Aye.
And finally, I'd like to make a motion to approve Notice of Completion, California Civil Code 8180 to 8190 and 9200 to 9208 related to the Out Valley Underground construction contract between Q&D Construction and the district, authorizing the president of the board to execute and record.
Dormer seconds it.
I'll
All in,
second that.
all in favor, Andy?
Andy, aye.
O'Grady, aye.
Dormer guy?
Abstain. Aye.
Congratulations. Very completed project.
Yeah, very good.
I just want to add a comment. Last week I was on a flight to Chicago, and I happened to be working on the Kirkwood website while I was on the plane. And so when the plane landed, the guy next to me said, he just wanted me to know that, he saw the Kirkwood logo. And I said, yeah, I'm on the board. And he said, well, he's a homeowner, and he never imagined in his lifetime that we'd be connected to the grid, and was very appreciative. And I kind of shared his feeling.
Great. I'm not sure I ever had an opinion about whether we'd be connected or not, but I'm glad we are.
Yeah.
Moving on to 8D, discussion possible action regarding the final issues and ongoing maintenance associated with the Out Valley Power Line project. Again, I'll turn it over to you, Michael.
Several items for as far as the maintenance and ongoing issues. We'll be discussing today the United States Forest Service work plan, the Caltrans claim, the SWTPP, and the revisitation. As far as the work plan, district staff has completed the required items on the 2015 United States Forest Service work plan, concentrating on repairing impacts from the winter downpours that we received in December and February. Invasive weed monitoring is complete as well. We may return to complete additional water bar installations, preventative maintenance issues, and trail clearing has been discussed with the board later this fall, depending on the weather and our project schedule. So these are the areas that were addressed, and you can see the ruts that were created in our roadways on Forest Service. This is a picture of us mobilizing to get ready, and this is what we left behind. So we're very pleased with the progress of the Forest Services as well. This will be an ongoing issue that we'll just need to address, but hopefully with water bar installations, we can kind of retain some of that, so we're not having to do so much out in the field. Any questions on our work plan for the Out Valley? As far as the Caltrans claim, district staff and Resource Concepts have been researching the possibility of submitting a claim to Caltrans for issues related to the construction and additional costs incurring during the Out Valley project. And these basically run into three different areas. The first is that based on Caltrans' request and design, we actually placed slurry in the road in their right-of-way, as shown in this slide. Subsequently, this slurry caused a dam and created water intrusion onto their roadway, which we've had to repair for a cost of $54,000, which was just approved by the board. Now, this was all done at their request and their design, and it caused a problem. Secondly, based on Caltrans approved plans, we were going to place the line in the shoulder of the road. But during construction, their maintenance crews felt that it was an unsafe application since they would be driving snow stakes in that area, and they had us move the trench line out into the roadway. And this, of course, caused massive costs as far as asphalting additional areas. This was a cost of $377,000. Then finally, Caltrans did not mark French drains that we encountered along the way. We, of course, ran right through them, and we incurred costs having to do additional repairs. This cost of $35,000 for the traffic control that we had to do while doing those traffic repairs. We actually were not charged for the additional. Recently, district staff met with RCI and Dick Shanahan, the district's general counsel, to discuss the items needed to make this filing, noting that there is a one-year time limitation on any of these claims. RCI estimates that the soonest that we would need to file would be in January of 2016. The following steps would be needed. RCI would need to put together the claim. Care would need to be taken so that we establish the claim thoroughly, because if we were ever challenged, or if this gets denied and we wanted to challenge it, we need to make sure that we presented our case initially in the claim with the same factors that we would want to if we wanted to pursue this in court. RCI estimates that this effort would take approximately 40 hours at $4,800. Potentially, we would want to have this claim reviewed by general counsel. I'm estimating $500 for that. For the potential cost to file the claim with Caltrans would be $5,300. This claim would go before the state's Victims Compensation and Claims Board. Dick Shanahan stated that the board should be prepared for having the claim denied. And that at this point, the board would need to make a decision on whether to proceed with filing a lawsuit against the state. I think Dick Shanahan's view is that there's a likelihood that this claim would be denied. That's especially on items 1 with the slurry and item 3 with the French drains. The item on the slurry is that a case could be made that there was no water in the road before our project, and after their project there was water in the road. You know, no matter whose issue is it, it's because of your trench that this went in, and you're liable. And then secondly is the French drains. Caltrans doesn't mark out anything along the road. They have an exemption for participating in USA, so they don't mark out their stuff. We did hit them and we did repair them, and it is a minor amount. Which leads us to the $377,000 movement of the trench. Dick stated that he and district staff feels that we do have a legitimate claim on this area. However, we should be prepared to go, if we decide to make the claim against the state in court, that this is a very complicated issue. Construction litigation is very complicated, and specialty counsel would probably need to be retained. A cost could run up to $100,000 to pursue this $377,000, and the board would need to make that decision at that time after discussion with specialty counsel on what sort of a case they feel we have. After a lot of consideration, staff does recommend that the board spend the $5,300, and we'll try to keep that down, to file an initial claim with Caltrans on the one issue, the issue of the movement of the trench. And with that, I open up to the board.
And we wouldn't file these, you just said we would file a claim with Caltrans. Wouldn't we file it with this group that you mentioned, State Victims Compensation and Government Claims Board?
Yeah, I just, generally, yes, it would be with the claim.
And I don't know this, but it's a department in the California state government that is ruling on claims against the California state government?
Right.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board?
Well, do we have any, so Caltrans would sort of be an interested but third party in all of this? It would all go through something else?
Right.
So it doesn't affect necessarily that relationship with Caltrans?
Yeah, well, I'm sure that the maintenance crews along the way would definitely be,
Annoyed?
and yeah, interviewed and knowing that we had a claim of this sort.
Okay.
We were actually, their lead inspector actually advised that if we have any issues, we should just file a claim.
Okay, and is there any history we can find out of people, the fact that it's both victim compensation and government claims, that's a pretty wide range of topics. I was just looking through their website. Do we have any way of knowing the success rate of other similar claims being filed?
We can certainly ask that question. I think Dick Shanahan's story, and he said that he wouldn't want to, he'd advise special counsel
Yeah.
to be advised,
I agree.
but he felt that we would likely be denied the claim.
Yeah, well, they have no reason not to, right?
Right, yeah, because the next step is,
Okay. Well, I definitely agree that we should take the next step. It's like if there's a 5% chance of it working out, we're better off. Right? And the only thing I wonder is to get some more information about what are the examples of successful claims and insights we can get on that. I would expect that they have no reason not to.
Deny us? Yeah. Is it binding if this group rules in our favor? Do we get the money from Caltrans?
I don't know if the Caltrans thing could appeal or not. I could ask that question. Or if we could appeal, you would think that if Caltrans could appeal to the claims division.
Well, I think we appeal by litigating, right? Any thoughts from other board members?
Well, what about the...
I think it makes sense to take it. I think it makes sense to take an initial step given the modest cost of it, and beyond that, it'd get pretty serious.
But there's also this government claims program that you do first. I assume that's part of the process. Okay. And a $25 filing fee.
Is that separate from the State Victims Compensation and Government
No,
Claim Board?
the two unrelated things are combined into one organization. Is what it looks like. I mean, obviously I have no history. The victims claim thing was added in 65.
In 1965?
Yeah, the claims board was established in 1911.
Well, it's very experienced, isn't it?
Yeah. She doesn't look that old. So, okay. Yeah. I think we should definitely start the process but get smart, learn as much as we can about who's been successful and why.
Any comments or questions from the audience? And it is staff's recommendation to pursue the initial claim
Yes, it is.
for the route change.
Yes,
Out of the
for the
shoulder.
377.
Well, I'll make a motion that we pursue the claim for change order that totaled $377,863 in an amount not to exceed $5,500.
I'll second that, abstain.
All in favor? Andy?
Kennedy, aye. Kennedy, aye.
O'Grady, aye.
Nordberg, aye.
Abstain, aye.
So moving on to D3, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, closeout.
Yeah, so the Stormwater Pollution and Prevention Plan, the SWPPP, will be closed out next week with the filing of the notice of termination. The revegetation, the final inspection is planned in October with the vendor Soil Tech, RCI and staff to determine if additional work is needed on the revegetation effort. It should be noted that Soil Tech has mentioned that they would complete a reseed at their cost. Recent inspections this year have shown that the reseeding has been doing much better than the previously inspections. So hopefully we'll have a good report too. But we should be looking at that again in October, and I'll bring that back in November.
Any questions or comments on SWPPP or underground revegetation? Moving on to 8E, general update, possible action regarding meetings with PG&E in the planning phase of potential switch station project. Manager Sharp.
As has been communicated previously, the Crooked Meadows PUD is working with PG&E to finding a resolution on issues with the Out Valley project. As you know, the district is concerned with the cost of ownership change charge for the substation work done at Tiger Creek and Salt Springs, which was completed by PG&E on the district's behalf, and the cost and need for the switch station at Salt Springs and possible alternatives to this construction. The cost of ownership question relates to the $2.9 million construction for the Tiger Creek and Salt Springs substation work, which was completed by PG&E, and the corresponding annual cost of ownership that PG&E will be charging. Specifically, the district has questioned whether this work is in fact completed solely for the benefit of the district, and if the district should bear 100% of the maintenance cost. We had a meeting with PG&E representatives, and their protection engineer came up with the concept of, rather than trying to drill down to the actual capital costs that were, and this component should have been here before and this component was an add-on, look at the maintenance costs that would be incurred on the old system and the new system. And so in the old system, there is an estimate that it would take 1 day to complete this maintenance. On the new system, it would be more like 5 days. Would a 20% reduction in that value make sense to allow for that increase in maintenance cost, but still having a maintenance cost there be established? The second issue is the cost and the need for the switch station project. And the district is working with PG&E to see if there are alternatives that would satisfy PG&E's regulations, specifically the Transmission Interconnection Handbook, but not to build a switch station at Salt Springs. These alternatives relate to the point of demarcation and the maintenance of the 115 line. On September 23rd, district staff met with PG&E on several alternatives. Working with PG&E ad hoc committee, staff placed these alternatives into a proposal letter, which was sent down for PG&E comment on October 2nd. We hope to send out the official proposal letter next week and meet with PG&E leadership to discuss these shortly thereafter. I think it's promising to note that PG&E and the districts have paused all switch station work at this point until we can determine the outcome of this negotiation. So, and with that, I open it up to questions.
Any questions from the board on the letter?
No, I've reviewed the letter, and I think it's very accurate and very positive. So.
Any
I
questions?
recommend PG&E accept it. I'll bring you a board resolution.
Yeah. What's more important than a board resolution? It's a ordinance. Let's put that one in an
we could
ordinance.
put them in.
Any questions or comments from the audience? Great, thanks for the update, Michael. 8F is discussion and possible action regarding electric usage and meter issues at multiple locations. Manager Sharp and Electric Propane Manager Brandy Benson.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome.
So I will start off on a discussion of the meter issues we found. As part of performance reporting, we've been reviewing the performance of our high-volume electric meters. So this has come in a couple of different parts. First, we checked the billing multipliers. We had Emerson Electric Reliability Services come out to do that. And subsequently, we've gone in and checked all the wiring for the current transformers that are used in these meters. And we found several issues. Issues at the Mountain Club, the snowmaking compressor, and the meadows. Additionally, as part of our internal staff work on the circuit project, we found an issue with the Chair 1 snowmaking. So I'll give an overview of each of those, starting with the Mountain Club. During the first Emerson inspection in 2012, a billing multiplier issue was found at the Mountain Club. We inherited the Mountain Utilities multipliers, and for the building there at Mountain Club, we had the incorrect multiplier in our system. This was corrected, and a credit to the Mountain Club HOA was issued in January of 2013. A subsequent Emerson visit in 2015 found that one of the CTs was in maintenance mode, and this is a picture of the shorting block that I discuss in the management report. For these, some of the test switches were placed in maintenance mode, which basically means we were not metering correctly there. Our analysis showed approximately 40% of the load was being recorded since 2011. So we took a look at the rules and regulations for electric. That says that we are allowed to bill as unauthorized use the most recent 3 years with any further back unmetered usage being as provided by law. We did check with district council on that, and he recommends, Dick Shanahan recommends ending the back billing at the 3-year mark. So for the Mountain Club HOA meter, this amounts to 131,400 kilowatt hours in the amount of $79,963.20. Are there any questions on the Mountain Club before I move on to Chair 1's snowmaking?
Before you finish the blow by blow for each one, I guess the question that I would ask is, when we took over, what was it that we didn't do when we took over everything to make sure it was all right? And what do we know now to make us confident that this isn't going to keep happening? And that's not a criticism, it's just kind of an overview. What, if you can tell us what
Sure.
how you think about that.
Sure. I think that we, as the district, started looking at the billing side of things, and we wanted to check the billing multipliers back close to when we took over. As we become more experienced with these type of meters and additional issues kept popping up, it became apparent that we really needed to go through and systematically check that each of the meters was wired correctly based on some improper installations that we've seen. So the multiple times that we have had Emerson out has been an effort on our part to make sure that not only the programming side of the meters for the multipliers, but also the physical wiring configurations are correct. And this really is an issue with the large electrical meters, not the smaller ones.
So to answer, if I was to do this again, I would have, we went around and took a picture of every meter in the entire system. We looked and physically touched every piece, but we didn't check behind the meters. We didn't check the multipliers in the system, and those are the two issues that we found. A whole bunch of issues with the purchase of the electrical system, and due to inexperience, I would say, for one, if we had to do it again, we would have checked a lot more things that we know today that we didn't know back then.
Yeah, knowing the attitudes of the previous owner, you would have thought that underbilling would have been hard. Yeah.
But I mean, we found like Renwick, where it had all wrong meters installed in it, and we had to replace all the meters over at Renwick. And so we found a whole bunch of meter issues that, if we would have known better, it would have been part of our due diligence during the initial stages. And on the Mountain Club issue, just to make a comment, is that when we found that there was an overbilling, the district did the right thing and issued a credit, $70,000 to the Mountain Club, and they haven't been paying electric bills for two and a half years. It's 40 owners over there. So I think the district stood up and did the right thing in that instance, and I think the right thing is to move forward on these bills as well.
And have we had a reaction from the current management in the Mountain Club? The current issue?
Yeah, they have been notified. They've been written a letter.
Right.
I haven't had direct contact with them yet. I've been attempting to.
All right, thanks.
Mhm.
How accessible are these meters? I mean, can anybody access them?
That's one of the things that we're going to be taking a look at. Most of these meters are accessible by either the general public or, management of the building. And one of the things that we need to complete is a meter lock set on each of the panels, like you can see here, that could be tampered with and cause a billing issue. So that's something that we have on our list to complete, and when we do that completion, we will do a final check to make sure everything's in good working order.
It seems like it would be prudent to lock them up if we can. I mean, just that having a contractor go in and unwittingly perhaps reprogram it wrong, not necessarily deliberately, but
It's a good point. If the problem with these is that shorting block, you just turn the screw and put it into maintenance mode, and
right.
that's all. That's as easy as it happens. So these need to be locked up.
And is staff able to determine if it's in maintenance mode or? Okay.
Only through a visual inspection
Through a visual inspection.
or an unusual meter reading.
Why don't you keep going?
Okay. If we move on to Chair 1 snowmaking, on this meter, we actually found that the plug that they would plug in a fan gun for snowmaking purposes was wired directly to the secondary paddles of the transformer, so it didn't go through a meter at all. That's been disconnected, and staff's taken a look at the estimated use for that connection. We estimate a total of 8,450 kilowatt hours for the period that the district has been in charge of electricity, with 7,120 kilowatt hours in the last 3 years. The total for that would be $4,863.
And Dale has been made aware of that. They have no issues with the bill, and they've asked us to discontinue that because they won't be using a fan gun at that location in the future. So it's not an area that they have a lot of usage for. So.
All right. If we move on to the snowmaking compressor, during an inspection with Emerson, we found that the wires between the CTs and the meter were swapped, causing a phasing issue. which could cause the meter to run inaccurately. That has been corrected as of September this year. Our next steps there are to do a load test during snowmaking when we actually have usage on that meter to confirm that our current meter configuration is accurate, and to do a calculation to see if there was any unbilled usage on that account. And then lastly, similarly, the Meadows was found to be wired inaccurately. A load recording was done showing that we were not getting good readings from that meter. And that has been rewired as of September. A load test was performed after the rewiring to confirm that the meter was accurate. And the next step on that account is to calculate, to determine if there is any unbilled usage on that account. And I'll be happy to answer any questions on those meter issues.
So staff's recommendation is to bill the Mountain Club and Vail the full amount, not just the last 3 years.
Staff's recommendation is to bill the last 3 years as per general counsel's recommendation, and to follow policy on all of these issues. And actually, if that's the direction of the board, we don't actually need a motion because we're just following policy. I have a question from the audience when you have a...
Sure, go ahead.
We have a question. Today, as new meters are connected, i.e. Timber Creek or a new home, what type of checking does the district do to verify the correctness of the wiring and the multipliers? This is from Nancy Trevette.
And any new connections that go in, we will have staff review the wiring connections. At Timber Creek Townhomes, those are the simpler residential meters. Any meters that require CTs or wiring diagrams, we would definitely run through our electrical engineer if needed.
So you've just made a different recommendation from what's... You've revised the recommendation in your memo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
After we talked with general counsel about it.
Okay. Any...
I just had one other item. One of the things I've worked on with staff is that for all of the electric usage, they can see charts of aggregates. So for all lifts or all snowmaking or individual, aggregate units, they can see historic data and compare it. Look for things that historically are varying, so that could be a clue of a problem happening.
Great.
Michael, Bob here, a question. We have agreed to pay Vail back a fairly significant amount of money. I think it was $50,000 per payment over some period of time to rectify incorrect metering on one of the lifts.
Yeah, that's Chair 1, and it's a $200,000 payment with 4 payments over the next 2 years.
Okay, and in that case, did we adhere to the convention of only going back 3 years to try to remedy what had been incorrect?
I believe that's correct, but I will verify that.
Any other questions from either the board or the audience on this topic?
So, it sounds like making good progress and comparing the goes-ins and the goes-outs, and they're converging.
Yeah,
That's the idea.
This all started with an effort called performance reporting. And, I think staff is really taking a hold on it. Randy's going to report on performance reporting in just a moment. And that's the difference between production and meter. And these projects that we're talking about were a direct reflection on trying to determine, how much we're producing on one hand and how much we're metering, and the difference in between, and trying to get our efficiencies down. And that's directly related to the circuit project. Not only is it a safety project to make sure that our phasing is correct and our labeling is correct, but also looking for unauthorized usage. So we have 1/3 of the project we hope to complete this year, and hopefully we'll get the balance done in the construction season of 2016.
Moving on to 8G, discussion and possible action regarding the district's and Vale's efforts to understand and resolve any electric harmonics issues in the Kirkwood Valley. Manager Sharp and Manager Benson.
District has been working with Vail Resorts on developing a plan to deal with harmonics issues. As reported in the exponential power quality report, the chairlifts produce harmonics above what is allowed in the district's rules and regulations and by industry standards. Vail Resorts is planning on changing out the drive for Chair 9, and the district is looking for specifications for this drive, load testing, etc., to ensure that they meet those harmonic standards. There's hope that as the drives are upgraded and or filters are installed or new capital projects are approved, that these devices will be installed that will limit harmonic distortions and its overall impacts in the valley. So Vail's been working with us. We've had several meetings, so we talked again about it yesterday. So they're aware, and I think they're trying to put in capital improvements like to Chair 9 is for one, and then Chair 4 is another, where new drives would be installed that would meet our harmonic distortion requirements.
Great. Any questions or comments from the board?
Just one, I need a refresher. What was the resolution in reactive power and why we didn't need to do anything with that?
Well, the resolution actually was that our main issue was with harmonics, dirty power.
Right, I understand that.
But with the Out Valley project, it resolved quite a bit because it produces so much capacitance.
Right, okay.
And so our power quality in the valley, one of the benefits that I didn't realize, that our power quality in the valley improved dramatically with the Out Valley project going in and being connected to the grid. The fluctuations in harmonics, the fluctuations in frequency, the reactive power issues, all were improved dramatically. This effort is just is to look at areas that we have hot spots and try to address those hot spots.
I understand that. I was just trying to remember where we stood, because some utilities do have a charge for reactive power. Right?
So we're in good shape.
And is Vail replacing that Chair 9 drive before this current ski season?
Yes, that's the hope.
Fortunately, they still have time.
Yeah, right. And Chair 4 is a big generator of harmonics, right?
Yes, it's a very large motor, so it produces quite a bit more. Chair 9 is actually right on the edge.
Right.
As far as being an issue.
So what is the current path with respect to Chair 4? To install a filter? Or?
Yeah, they're looking to replace the drive and install a filter on that.
Okay.
And put it into the capital plan.
For this ski season, or?
No. Future ski season.
Okay, so that's a future.
Yes, sir.
Any, and is the thought they would not put in a filter until they replace that drive?
Is Chair 4?
Yeah.
I think it's a dual that they would do it at the same time.
Any other, so this is an ongoing issue?
Yes, sir. And I'll continue to bring this up as improvements are made and as news comes out.
I'll keep it as a standing agenda item until resolved. Any further questions on harmonics from either the board or the audience?
I'll just ask, at what point do we charge a fee?
I think that if we don't come to a good solid plan, and that plan is to upgrade items throughout the valley as needed, filters or drives or whatever, then we certainly have a right to charge a fee. Actually, we don't have to provide service, or we charge a fee. So it's in our rules and regulations.
Right. So when do you think we'd be at that point?
I would think that when the progress forward doesn't meet the board's anticipations.
I guess you're starting to hear rumblings.
I started to hear rumble.
Because I think it's relatively, I don't understand why they can say, well, we'll consider it for next year's capital budget when it's damaging homeowners' equipment now.
Understood.
Yeah.
So I think it feels like a very leisurely nature, and I guess my patience may be nearing the end.
I think it's definitely been a leisurely pace. I would think that if we don't have a concrete plan, this is just a straw man, in the first quarter, January to March, we should charge for it.
Well, I've put onto our agenda in our regular meetings that we need to develop a concrete plan when each chairlift will be upgraded to resolve the harmonics issues by the first quarter, or further action by the board will take.
Seems
Fair enough.
reasonable.
Okay.
We've been talking about this for 2 years.
Yeah, it's,
Or longer.
right, and a plan to
So
say,
that's our, can I suggest that that's our intent as far as the timeline and where we want to take this, so we get a little more concrete on the way Michael phrased that, and just, responsibly, professionally communicate to Vail that, this is when we'll start charging unless resolution has been achieved. I think Michael's wording was a little soft.
So do we have somebody that's reviewing the results of these upgrades? Say Chair 9, for instance, I know that they put in, they're in the process of installing it right now this past week. Is there a way that we can grade the effort that they're making? Who's in charge of that?
Yeah, so we have power quality meters that we took before they installed it, and then we'll put it on after they installed it, and then we'll send it out to Exponential, and Exponential is the people that did the report on power quality, and they let us know, whether or not they're in compliance or not. So,
So what they're putting in Chair 9 was was pre-approved by Exponential?
no, it was not. We've asked for information on the Chair 9 upgrade so that we could, and that's exactly how it should be installed, is that they request to put in equipment that would impact the district system. They send it to, they send the specifications out to our electrical engineer. We approve it, and then they install it. This is somewhat backwards.
Right.
And it hasn't been a lack of trying and for bringing the subject up. So,
right, but the other point is they challenged the Exponential's report.
right.
And so we haven't gotten any written reply back from them. So I'm losing patience.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a meeting, and we don't feel that their challenge stood up to the test. That it was, if they have a challenge, they need to write it down and let us know exactly what that is, because but Exponential is reviewing the information that they sent over on the load test, and like I said, Chair 9 is right on the edge on whether it complies with district standards or not. So I don't think we're in dire straits with this installation. If the same thing was happening with Chair 4, then I think we would. But
Yeah.
I'll draft a letter to Vail Resorts with regards to formulating this concrete plan for each chairlift by a certain date. And then I'll look at our rules and regulations to see exactly what our recourse is. We could say charging for it, but I want to make sure that what we say we can do, we have,
Yeah, well, I mean,
we can enforce what we say. So
Right.
let me check
Yeah,
what's in
I
our
agree with that.
rules and regulations.
okay.
And would you also check whether that means we need to change the rate structure to add a component for harmonic or distortion?
Discontinue service.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think is in the.
I think, yeah, because it's faulty equipment, our only option may be to discontinue. I don't know how we figure out the
Right.
impact of putting out bad noise.
Right, so I think we would have to
So we would just discontinue service. I don't know.
And I think that would be a much
It's not
much
pleasant,
political
but,
way
We got close.
of moving forward is to change our rate structure, which is, a public hearing, and, but it isn't a Proposition 218 issue.
Right. You think that would be what kind of way? Political way, is that what you said?
Well, it's better than shutting down a chairlift in the
Yeah,
first quarter
sure.
of 2016. And charging an additional charge for the impact of harmonics would make sense. Shutting down a chairlift just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Good, so more on that at next meeting, including hopefully Vail's response to our harmonic study.
Sure.
When did you provide Vail with that?
6 weeks?
Okay.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. Am I closer? Do you know?
That was longer.
I thought it was longer too.
Yeah, I think it's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Anything else on harmonics?
No, sir.
8H is discussion and possible action related to the district's research and efforts to improve the efficiencies and minimize the losses of each department as measured in performance reporting. Electric Propane Manager Brandy Benson.
So we'll start our performance reporting with electric. This month, we were impacted somewhat by the fire. We kind of double dipped. We had out valley losses and powerhouse losses. For this month, we had a total system loss of 109,000 kilowatt hours, which was 26% of our production for the month of September. Our goal for the year is 18%, and this month brought our total to 25%. A little detail on this. Our distribution system losses remained somewhat constant. We saw about a 6.3% commercial loss, about a 2% loss in lifts, and a 1% loss in residential. Our out volley loss does appear high this month, and we had the impact of re-energizing both of our large out valley transformers and the line after it was off for a week. We also saw the 4 step-up transformers here at the powerhouse be energized for several weeks because of this outage. So overall, we are high in electric for the year, but we are hopeful that once we start spinning lifts, we'll have a little better production, a higher production, which would make our losses back in line with our goal. If we move on to propane, we see the same large negative unmetered that Kelly had mentioned. We did have, it appears that this is just on the timing of our deliveries of propane. We had a delivery late in the month in July, and we showed a high unmetered total. And we had a delivery early in the month in September, and we showed this negative unmetered total. On the positive side, we are meeting at this point our goal of 2% for the year. Our goal of 2%, we're actually exceeding it. If we can go to the propane side, we're actually at 1% for the year after a negative 21% for this month. We're looking into how we could change perhaps the way we track our deliveries to kind of smooth out this large up and down, but on the positive side, we are meeting our goal for propane. Water also had a positive month. We only had a loss of 38,360 gallons in water for the month, which was 5% of our total. We had a couple of fire department uses for a total of a little over 1,000 gallons. And our total fiscal year loss of 13% is meeting our goal of 16% for the year. And lastly, in wastewater, we also had a good month. Our total system unmetered gallons showed 3,245,000 gallons, or 1% for the year. As you remember, the identified system unmetered usage are all estimates, and this month those estimates were more than our actual loss for the department. So we do show a little bit of gained gallons there, but that's just because of those estimates. Our yearly goal is 30%, and if you remember at the end of the fiscal year when we have snow melt and infiltration, that's when we start getting the really high numbers. So it's good for us to be at 7% at this point. Are there any questions on performance reporting?
Not from me. From any of the other board members or anybody in the audience? Great. Good job.
Thank you, Brandon.
8I is discussion and possible approval of a wholesale wastewater service agreement with Vail Resorts to provide water services for a snowmaking system at the Timber Creek area. Manager Sharp.
Recently, Vail Resorts has approached the district about providing water and electricity services at the base of Chair 9 for snowmaking operations to cover the beginner terrain at Timber Creek. As you remember, 2 years ago, they rumbled 2,600 dump loads of snow from the Chair 5 area over to Timber Creek in order to prolong that stay. This effort would be to make snow so those dump runs wouldn't have to take place and we wouldn't have to move snow across the mountain. The district has drafted a wholesale water service agreement attached, and after review and comment by district council, has provided a copy to Vail Resorts. They have reviewed it and they have signed it, and it is in our in the signature. The final copy is in our signature packet. Terms of the agreement require Vail Resorts to provide a $5,000 deposit to cover all costs. The district would be putting in a traffic grade box. It would be located right next to the fire hydrant. You can see where that yellow sign is in this slide. That's where the T we would tap into the 6-inch line, bring it into a traffic rated box to put the meter, and then the meter, we'd have a valve on either side of the meter, and then it would go into a 2-inch IP fitting so that the Vail could hook into that. They would plumb it over to a hydrant that they use all throughout the mountain and control their operations in that phase. Section 9 of this agreement covers rates. We'd be charging them $12 per 100 cubic foot, which is the same amount that we charge for contractors or other non-customer. This is to provide for the cost of providing water to that location. They would operate on a 100,000 gallon reserve. If they exceeded that reserve, we'd shut off service until our aquifers could replenish that. So it's a set amount of water that they could use over a set amount of time without hurting our aquifer levels. District staff recommends providing Vail Resorts the water and electric service needed for snowmaking at the Chair 9 base and approval of the wholesale water agreement.
How much does it cost us per gallon to produce that water?
That's exactly where it was based on, is the $12 for to produce the water. The $4 irrigation charge is less because people pay base rates, the customers pay base rates. But what it was anticipated to do to pay for the district's cost to provide the service. Now that's been in effect for many years, so I'd recommend that we look back into all of our production costs and re-verifying with today's rates.
So I have a question, but it might be a misunderstanding. So we're putting in a new meter there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see a monthly meter charge in the agreement. Did I miss it, or?
It's they pay for the meter. It's not a census meter. It's a large meter.
Oh, and it's a manual read.
Right.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be one of the financed meters. This would just be the $5,000 pays for the entire
Okay.
cost.
All right. Thanks.
And the staff feels that we can adequately refill the tanks in case they're running. You put a cap on how much water they can take, and that's taking into regards how long it takes to refill the tanks.
Right, and once they, hit that cap, we don't turn back on the spigot until we refill the,
So we would be reading this meter manually every day?
during snow. So right now, their operations for snowmaking in this area is a short window before the December 16th time period. They're looking at it from December 1st through, however long they need it. Depending on the season, it could go on for 2 months, or it could go on for 3 weeks, or not at all, depending on how much snow. But during snowmaking operations, we read it on a regular basis, yes.
Right. It's based on when they're going over to the creek, basically,
Yes, sir.
not when the water's available.
And 100,000 gallons, how many days might that involve? I mean, how many gallons per day do you expect them to consume?
I think that's about 3 days, but, we get an experience level after, seeing how much they
Sure.
do.
Any questions, comments on this from the audience? Great, and your recommendation is to approve this?
Yes, sir.
I'll move that we approve it.
Epstein seconds.
All in favor, Andy?
NDI.
We'll just hold off. There may be a comment from the audience on.
This is your question. Vail has stated snowmaking begins November 1st. If Chair 9 needs commercial meters to measure use, how and when will Vail work be reviewed for installing meter accuracy by the district? If Chair 9 needs commercial meters to measure use.
I think that's an electric meter question.
Is that, yeah, I see. Yeah, this is a water meter. Frankly, I don't understand.
Well, there's an electric meter mentioned also, right?
Yeah, there's an existing meter. The electricity would be measured, that the usage from the fan gun, that's probably what it is, through an existing Chair 9 meter. So, and that has been verified and checked, so that accuracy is there.
So continuing with the vote, O'Grady, aye.
Norbert, aye?
Epstein, aye.
Moving on to 8J, discussion and possible approval of a proposal to purchase a power gurney for the Kirkwood Volunteer Fire Department, funded from the proceeds from the Summer Kirkwood Festival. Assistant Manager Rick Ansel. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
As the board is aware, the Kirkwood Volunteer Fire Department currently uses an ambulance that's provided by Alpine County, and within the ambulance there's a gurney or an ambulance cot that is an older cot. It's manually operated. It takes 2 volunteers to lift the gurney in and out of the ambulance. And when you have a patient on board, it can be very dangerous to lift the patient with weight and the gurney and everything else to get it in without straining the back or causing injury to our staff. Recently, in the last several years, other departments have obtained a similar gurney, but it's actually battery operated, where staff can lower and raise the legs of the gurney without having to do lifting with this battery. So there was definitely a need for the department to kind of improve the equipment that we're using, and through the great efforts of the Kirkwood Summer Festival Committee and the community, we were able to raise over $16,000 to purchase a gurney. And contacting the sales rep with Stryker Pro, they actually loaned us a gurney that was a demo that was, lack of better words, the top shelf Cadillac gurney, as you say, that had all the bells and whistles on it, way more than what we needed. That demo gurney was able to reduce the price down to $13,706.25 from the estimated $16,000 cost, and in consequence, that's the one I'm asking for today. And I should also say as well, with the upgrade of the gurney, this gurney will be able to, currently our operations now is that we load a patient into our gurney, but if we have to transfer the patient into higher level care through the ALS mutual aid agency that provides services for Kirkwood, Lake Valley, Eldorado Medical Services. We have to transfer that patient from cot to cot. With the purchase of this gurney, we wouldn't have to do that time delay of transferring patient. We can just exchange cots, and so the patient's golden hour or speed of care would be increased significantly. It's staff's recommendation for that the board approve the attached Stryker invoice to allow the Kirkwood Volunteer Department to purchase this new gurney. It's a Stryker Pro Power Pro XT in the amount of $13,706.25.
Sounds like a good deal.
Right.
We would have brought it up stairs and had you take rides on it if need be.
I'd like to stay out of it.
We never need it.
It seems pretty uncontroversial.
Yeah, Dornberg moves to approve the purchase of the gurney as described.
I'll second it. All in favor, Andy?
NDI.
O'Grady, aye.
Dornberg, aye?
Epstein, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And 8K, update possible action regarding the removal of stored equipment from the school site. Assistant Manager Ansel.
As the board is aware, we've had a great community effort to try to improve the appearance of the school site next to the wastewater treatment plant. Staff has met with George Stahl and John Ryder, with the managing director of the Kirkwood Mountain Development Team. And as a result, on the week of September 21st, staff spent 2.5 days with a cooperative effort with Vail Resorts, Kirkwood Property Services staff, as well as ACES, to arrange to have an in-dump dump truck come up along with two 40-yard containers, essentially 140 yards worth of containers brought up to Kirkwood. We were fortunate enough where we didn't have to sort material on site. We were able to just put the material right into the containers, and we removed 20,069 tons worth of material. And the original estimated cost for the project was around $6,000, and I believe we'll be able to present the Kirkwood Mountain Development Team an invoice for just the labor and the material for the containers for probably around $4,000. We're still working out the details on the invoicing. And I also should note that it was a very successful project. Things went smoothly, and as I mentioned before, a great cooperative experience with the different departments and companies. We did leave back the hazardous material. For example, there's 2 propane tanks on site, as well as several older transformers, and we have given George Stahl and John Ritter information on how to have that material removed. So again, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to clean the site. I think it's a great community thing. And that concludes my report, unless there's any questions from the board, of course.
Thank you for doing that.
So, Rick, Bob here, did you say 20,000 tons of stuff?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that right?
20 tons, 20.69 tons. I misspoke. That would have been a lot more.
That would have been
Heck of a lot of stuff anyway. I think this is really a great project. Really appreciate getting this done and done right. And it's a win for us as a community.
I would encourage you to periodically follow up with George and John Richter about getting the remaining eyesores out of there. Any questions, comments from the
No,
audience?
I just kind of looking forward, are there similar efforts that we might be able to prompt for? Vail certainly has their fair share of problem areas. Perhaps this sets a model that we could use in other cases to make further progress in beautifying the valley.
Yeah, good point. One area that has been identified recently is the area up near the volcano building, right here to the west of the district. And then another area that I discussed with Casey yesterday was the screening from the Kirkwood Meadows Drive of the parking lots here. We have an effective screen on the first part of this, but it kind of tails off, and I think we could continue that screening in the future to try to hide this parking area from the road very effectively. So that would be another cooperative effort with Vail Resorts, where possibly we would provide some water and they would provide some, labor and everything to put a better screening in that area. So,
Meaning trees, grow trees?
or willows, or you could see the difference, and you could see how it kind of sloughs off towards the south there. So I think that's been an effective project for us, and to continue that effort to screen our parking areas and industrial zones from the public is great.
Well, I'd certainly encourage you, as I have, to follow up on that area near the volcano site. If there's any way of chopping up those trees, Vail, made good progress, I think, in the early part of the summer, and then over the course of the summer, all the potholes have been filled. The district has painted a number of its buildings. The vehicle maintenance shop actually looks pretty good right now, with the exception of our stuff. And I think that the real eyesore is that corner there, which everybody drives by at least once a day. And it's not just the wood, it's more the metal, frankly, for me, that just looks like it's dumped there. I don't know, Peter, what's your view on that? You live here.
Well,
It's just kind of right in the middle of everything.
It's better than it's ever been. In my perspective, it used to be a lot worse. The problem is that we keep getting more trees. When they clear trees off the mountain, they have to go through the Forest Service process of getting them tagged and which ones can be cut, which ones need to be sold. But at a certain point, you need some storage space.
Sure.
We're recycling one of the towers that came off of Chair 6 for a sign project. Some of the stuff is going to be recycled over the mountain, some of the metal. But sure. Is that ambiguous enough answer for you?
I guess what you're saying is it's better than it has been, and
Sure.
some of that stuff's going to be recycled.
Well, this property that we're sitting on used to be a boneyard.
Sure.
At one time, this whole parking lot, all the islands were filled with debris. It's broken down snow cats, tracks, all that stuff. So it's better than it used to be. That's a big improvement on the school side.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments on removal of stored equipment from the school site?
Yeah, remind me, whatever happened to the proposal to convert the school site to a parking lot? Was that dead? Or still ongoing, or?
Sure, still ongoing. So the proposal is from KCP, the development company, to put in, there originally was 193 parking lot over there, and we've been having meetings on a regular basis. Actually, we met again, I think, about 10 days ago on site. They're looking at other areas to, increase the screening for the residents in the area, and to, move the parking lot into more of a rectangular shape. So they're continuing to come up with different alternatives. District staff has asked that the parking lot be used for employee parking, because that would minimize the number of guest traffic on that side of Loop Road going to the ski resorts, and have more of the guest parking be in this lot and those lots, and let that be for employee parking that get here earlier, can be shuttled to their respective positions, and then leave it alone if that becomes a parking lot. So does that answer your question, Larry?
So no decision, no final decision?
No, they're working with community members to try to come up with a design that would meet their needs.
Thanks.
There are some stakes in that area right now. There's a green stake, which I think is what certain members of the community have proposed. It's an extension in an eastward direction from the existing employee housing parking. And then there's there are blue stakes, which are the county line.
Right.
And then there's orange cones, which are the developer's revised proposal. And the only reason I know that is Michael and I walked that yesterday. And the revised proposal is, I guess, less than the original proposal, but at least my concern, just being one member of the community, not official PUD perspective, is I just think it's too much, and too much tree destruction when you factor in snow removal that results in the bottom 30 feet of branches being removed. So an ongoing effort.
I concur with that completely. I concur with that completely.
So how do we maintain awareness or involvement in that project?
A good question. I think as they bring up proposals, I think that we need to communicate that to the community, and especially if it gets to a point where it goes back before the regulatory body like a TriTac, or goes before that we let them know and what the viewpoint is. If they come up with a proposal that meets a lot of people's desires, then we need to let that be known and make sure that we hear all the public be aware of what the impact would be.
So the approval authority is TriTac, or?
That would be the first step.
Right.
Would be through TriTac.
And that was kind of the last effort to engage the community in voicing opinions. So that was an excellent comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and we will continue to make the
Reach out.
public aware, reach out and let you know when those review processes.
Opportunities to influence.
Yes, sir.
I think some of the hesitation that you might be sensing here is our purpose there was to take issues that are specifically related to the district
Right.
and ask the community to support our thing. It's not our goal to be an activist agency for the community on general interests. And so that kind of tension, we're trying to be very careful and keep it to things that are specific to the district, which is why you hear about the safety issues and water quality. But if any members of the community want to be activists on it, they really should. Like Sandy.
Yeah, it's a fluid situation. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but I think the most recent proposal for snow removal was to remove 2 corridors between that proposed parking area, and the meadow, and to build snow ramps in years when there's a lot of snow. And I guess the complication is that it's now proposed not to be a paved parking lot, but cinders, and so those ramps would be brown ramps, with the cinders ultimately ending up in the meadow. So it's very much of a fluid situation. Anything else on the school site? Move on to general manager report. Thank you, Rick.
Sir. Pleased to mention that the aquifer levels at wells 4 and 5 have remained stable. We have a 167 feet average for September. Well number 2 with limited operation is at about 24 feet. So our aquifer levels remain stable, and we are into October, so that's good news for us. You'll note in your packet on page 121 is Rick's diagram of the wastewater treatment plant equipment. We do have an issue with the polymer feed system at the centrifuge, which we're addressing, but everything else is in the green category. So we're getting ready for winter there. A map on page 122 shows you potential areas where Superintendent Dornbrook will be putting in manhole inserts. Of course, all of our manholes are different sizes, so they have to be custom made for each of these areas. But these are potential areas where we could have overflow into the collection system, and where Derek will be putting in these inserts that we've shown the board in the past. Pages 123, you'll see equipment maintenance and repairs. This is getting ready for snow removal operations, and this is a list of our maintenance items that we want to do on each of our pieces of equipment. And if you'll notice as you came over, snow stakes are going up throughout the valley. And East Meadows on the roadways, East Meadows is done, and we're working through the commercial and heading to the west side. Over at Timber Creek, a grease trap has been installed as per district standards. This grease trap is to provide for enhanced food operations in the Mighty Mountain area for the kids. And right now, it's just going to be as per Alpine or Amador County Health. Or is it Alpine County? It's Dennis Lamson. So
Dennis is working for Amador for this project.
requirement to, have a three sink container in the kitchen area, which requires a grease trap. So they've installed a grease trap up there, and we'll probably be completing that next week before the district's limitation on excavation, which is also in your packet. We're working on main lines, which is this will be connecting to a district manhole. In your packet also is a notice from Volcano with regards to an update on their fiber project. And I think you'll notice that this year they're hoping to complete Kirkwood Meadows Drive, Merrill Road, Fremont Road, and Court, Dangberg Drive, Wintergreen, Yarrow, and Hockley. And then with work also at Base Camp. So they'll be updating us regularly on their progress of this, but they were delayed because of the Butte fire and things that happened down there. I open up that for any questions that you might have on Volcano. We were thinking of putting this notice in onto the website to ensure.
They also sent a new notice out last night that updates things.
Oh, great. I haven't
So
seen
you may
it.
want to use that one instead.
Oh, okay.
At least I got an email letting me know that look forward to next year.
Okay. It's probably in response to the district's questions on,
Yeah.
the update.
Yeah. Did you get it in your email?
I got it.
Yeah.
At 2 a.m.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
I can
didn't
forward
get
it.
it.
I'll forward it to you.
Also an update on the Verizon Tower, which will be going up, the extension of the existing tower next to the Volcano building. They're going through at the FRC approvals right now, and they look to have that done for next year's construction season.
Oh, next year.
Yeah, so it'll be this.
I thought I saw a memo saying it was Q1 for the Verizon Tower now.
Yeah, Q1 would be next year, right?
Oh, okay. I thought you meant next construction season, which would
Yeah, I
be-
can't believe they do it in the winter, possibly.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Any questions for Michael on General Manager's report? Okay. How about committee reports? Finance, Bob?
Most things were covered from the last finance meeting. The only thing I wanted to add in, which was related to this, is a conversation that Michael Kelly and I had about the financials overall, which is there are a lot of exceptions that are currently happening, either due to the audit being late or whatever. And we've explored some different ideas to try to make the financials more self-explanatory. So you can just say, are we okay or not? We had a plan. And so some of that would be looking at doing more accrual accounting, because prior to a few years ago, the district did 100% cash accounting. And so there's pieces of that still around. So we talked about that. We're looking at various ways of having the financials themselves have annotations on them, so there's a permanent record of why there's deviations. The problem with that is those would be fairly small type. And so then we discussed taking the board package and instead of having it be scanned, which is what it currently is, in this case it looks like it was scanned twice, it would have to be originals, and then that would allow us to expand it. That would mean the printed version wasn't very meaningful. I discussed with Peter possibly the idea that we just put his on an iPad. He could pick that up, and if it didn't work out, then we print it on 11 by 16 or something. But anyway, I'm sure we could solve that. So we're going to look at various ways that we could improve the quality of the visual presentation, as well as documenting the exceptions in a way that would make them easier to follow.
That'd be great. Have we covered everything else on finance?
Yeah.
Planning, Bob, Andy, do you have any comments?
A couple of quick things. First off, on water resources, we do not yet have any responses on our applications for grants to build a water tank, but there are some investigations going on about where to place the water tank, including replacing the existing Dangler tank with a larger one. That seems like a fairly good path to explore. So that's in progress. Let's see, we talked about parking on mitigation measure monitoring. That's going to be a key item on the agenda of a meeting coming up on October 16th between members of the Planning Committee and Terry Woodrow and Lynn Morgan. There will be other things on the agenda too, but that's one that we really want to understand whether or not we have a valuable role to the counties in terms of mitigation measure monitoring. And the last thing I would mention is that we just did our self-assessments. I'll be issuing a memo on that shortly to the board just to say how we think we've done over the last year. And that's it from beautiful downtown Flagstaff. It's like the latest on-campus shooting in America.
Too bad. Okay.
Looking right out over the campus.
Operations and capital.
I think Michael discussed most of those items in his report, so I really don't have anything to add.
And personnel, we had a meeting last week and covered sick pay changes, which was in the consent calendar, as well as the results in response to CalPERS audit in February, I think. And we've, at the Finance Committee's initiation, we're also going to do a little more work on looking at CalPERS defined contribution plans as opposed to defined benefit plans. We considered that in February of 2014, but we're going to relook at it. And we've evaluated the revised on-call policy for district staff and suggested to Michael to continue with that. And finally, the Aqua JPIA Employee Assistance Program has been a success. I shouldn't say and finally. And finally, we reviewed the general manager's objectives and progress so far this year, and it seems on track. Any questions on committee reports? So finally, general discussions, the opportunity for board members to ask questions for clarification, provide information to staff, committee updates, request staff to report back on a matter, or direct staff to place a matter on a subsequent agenda. Anybody have anything? I guess the self-out evaluation that the planning committee did, is it our policy that all our committees are supposed to do that?
I know it's in the planning charter. I can check with the other charters and see. I think it was a valuable experience for planning. I think Bob could relate.
Yeah, my recollection is, well, it was a valuable experience, but my recollection is that we did incorporate that in the general structure of the committees. I might be wrong on that, but if we had it, I would suggest we should.
Yeah, I vaguely remember doing them in the past, but I'm not aware of the frequency. So if you could let us know, maybe we should put that on the agenda for the next board meeting.
Or at least for the committees.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the committees, yeah.
So I just had one other question on accounts, accounting. So I've only been on the board for 2 years, but generally most people pay their bills, but there's one consistent entity that really doesn't, and that's I don't know if I should name names or not, but the commercial account that is on this list of walk-offs, and I'm just wondering whether we're going to continue our flexibility with this account going into the next season, or whether we have a better solution for collections.
So if there
am I misinformed, and have they actually paid up?
Yeah, I think they were on a payment plan, and
Right.
the payment plan didn't get carried through. They
Right.
won't, hopefully they'll resume operations in the winter.
Yeah.
And at that point, they pay up all the past due bills.
Uh-huh.
They remain current on the district can require a deposit of those that have been delinquent
We've done that in the past with that account.
with that account. Exactly.
Okay, I just,
Just to
yeah,
Just to note, they will get caught up through the year, and it's usually that last month that stays on the books, when they close and then they leave. That's what happens.
Okay.
Like, they get caught up through the year with their payment plans, and then at the end of the season, they leave and close, and it rolls over to the next
I
winter
see.
season.
Okay, so you're on top of it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I guess that's all I wanted to know.
Great. Any further business? So we'll adjourn the meeting.
All right.
Thank you all for attending.